afternoon, and welcome to the special meeting of the Glendale City Council of May 6, 2021, being called to order at 1:07. Due to the evolving situation with COVID-19 novel coronavirus and health recommendations from the LA County Health Department, the City of Glendale special City Council meeting will be available to the public electronically. Due to social distancing requirements, the public will not be able to attend the meeting, but we encourage you to watch and participate from the safety of your own homes. The meeting can be viewed on Charter Cable Channel 6 and AT&T Uverse Channel 99. It's also streaming online at glendaleca.gov on our meeting portal. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting these questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person during the Glendale City Council special meeting. And with that, roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian.
We have some crosstalk. Go ahead.
Councilmember Agajanian.
You're muted.
Present.
Brotman.
Here.
Kasakian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Mayor Devine.
Here. Next, please.
The agenda for the Thursday, May 6, 2021 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on May 3rd, 2021 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And next.
Next would be finance regarding fiscal year 2021-2022 budget study session number 3, departmental study session, city clerk, city attorney, human resources, and community service and parks.
Thank you. And I'll go to Mr. Galanian, and I understand you have some information for all of us to begin with.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. Before we start this study session today, if you would allow me to make a couple of clarifications and a suggestion at the end. If I can go back to the discussion that was held during the study session last Tuesday morning on Measure S, there was quite a bit of conversation evolved around the request to fund a position in the Office of Sustainability out of Measure S funds. And in hindsight, I admit we shouldn't have added that to the list of recommendations, and I take responsibility for that. It was clear direction from Council in the past couple of years that Measure S funds should not pay for the salaries and benefits of any position within the city. However, that said, there were also a request to go back and segregate the staffing costs that are involved in the recommended programs and programs that have been approved in the past by Council. And that effort, I'd like to share with you that it's not as straightforward as it may seem. We can do it, staff can do it, finance budget team can do it. However, these programs and initiatives that have been approved and funding allocated for, with them carry an inherent cost of personnel that will have to deliver these worthy programs and initiatives based on Council's priority. So with that, I would humbly request that you as Council reconsider that request moving forward. And we have taken off that request for the position on Measure S, and that we can move forward with the approval, if you would, of Council's initiatives and recommended programs as such.
Okay. Comments from my colleagues on this request? Any comments? Are you okay with this?
Give it to me one more time again, Rubik, that the Sustainability Office support will be found a place in the general fund,
Ma-
correct? But the
Madam
rest
Mayor-
of the stuff that
Yeah.
we sort of discovered was coming out of there will remain in there? Is that what you're asking us, if we want to remain, keep those?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Member of City Council, Councilmember Najarian, we will have to fund that position out of potentially other enterprise funds, not necessarily general fund. It will be housed in the city manager's office, and we will reallocate, not reallocate, but we'll cost that out against the departments such as Public Works and GWP that have enterprise funds, and the majority of this work will relate to those efforts anyway in the area of sustainability. And the rest that have,
Put it in GWP. They always have a lot of money.
well, yeah, and
And this is related to power.
exactly,
Right,
and
Dan?
there's synergy and there's justification
Much of
to do
it
that.
is, yeah.
But what I'm suggesting,
It's related to waste, so Public Works makes sense to me anyway.
right.
Okay, so, but let's hold on. Councilmember Agajanian, one at a time, please. Go ahead. You're mute. Okay.
Okay. We discussed this. I said before, when we agreed to have sustainability office, I was worried this office going to get larger and larger and larger. And at the time, Yasmin Beer said, no, one person would handle it because he or she will be concentrated only on this issue and will not get involved with anything else. And there's not going to be more staff. It's not going to be needed. I said it last time. Now, again, this came back and we're discussing that we are not paying from this department. We will pay from the other department. I don't understand. So what we were discussing last week, or not last week, 2 days ago, or was Tuesday? Yeah. What happened? Again, we are looking for somebody to be added to that sustainability office?
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, Councilmember Agajanian, you are correct. In last Tuesday morning's budget study session, the council's directive was not to fund this position, my understanding, not to fund this position out of Measure S funds. However,
No.
Right.
No, that was not the issue. The issue was that you go back and look at, we went through this and Yasmin was explaining that one person, I raised this issue at that time, whenever we established sustainability office, and if the person needs help, the staff somehow are going to help him, but one person is enough for this department. Now we are expanding all the time, more employees are needed. Here has been said that 2 positions has been eliminated. And now sustainability came in and somebody to help that department. So what we have eliminated? Nothing.
Well, if I may step in, Councilmember Agajanian, I think what has happened since this sustainability position was acquired, we staff and I think even council have kind of seen that it's much more work than we had anticipated. What with a commission and all of the other issues that come before our sustainability director. And also, you know, we've had a hiring freeze. So to move someone from another department, as I suggested, might be difficult. They're going to try to do it, but it may be difficult because of our short staff. I think those are the basic 2 reasons that that this position is necessary. Mr. Galanian, if you agree or if you have anything more to add to that, please do.
yeah, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, I agree 100% with your statement. At the time, When we started this Office of Sustainability, we really didn't have a work plan established. We didn't have a Sustainability Commission at the time. And I need to clarify that this is not a department, standalone department. Mr. Jones is handling all the work that's involved, and it's proven to be more than what one person physically, in my opinion, can do, despite of Mr. Jones putting in long hours, working on weekends. And as you mentioned, Madam Mayor, there's so many items that need to be addressed in a timely manner that it's a necessitated addition of a position. Again, we are not adding headcount to the number of employees we have. We're taking a vacant position from another department and reallocating to this position.
I hope that explains this to you, Mr. Agajanian. I understand your frustration, but I think it's something that we really have to look at and make sure that that this department, you know, especially with the focus that we have now on sustainability and climate change and all of those issues, I think it's going to take more than one man or one woman to accomplish everything that we're trying to pull together, but in one office.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Kasakian.
I also think that having just one additional body, or even a pair of bodies to help our sustainability officer right now is needed and appropriate given our focus, given the scale of the challenge ahead of us. What I do want to emphasize, though, is that once we do, staff is telling us they need this position, we need to trust staff that they are asking us for the appropriate things that will help them accomplish the duties which we've tasked them to do. But that needs to be combined with clear objectives. What are the goals? What will these positions help achieve? And if after a year and 2 years we come back and we assess and we see that the goals are not being achieved, then we have to have some way of correcting that, whether it's through elimination of those positions, coming up with different positions. So it's fine to have this request. I support it. I don't think it's asking for that much given the scope of what is at hand, but we also need to know what it is that exactly we're paying for on behalf of the taxpayers.
Of course. Okay, with that, what about the second part of your request, Mr. Galani? You want to restate that?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, as I asked humbly for a reconsideration of the exercise to segregate personnel costs, the inherent personnel cost involved in the implementation of the programs and initiatives that Council has approved or is going to recommend approval moving forward. And again, we're not asking for any new positions as part of those recommended programs.
Is everyone in agreement?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Councilmember Najarian? Kasakian?
Yes.
Well, I opened up my mouth yesterday and put my foot down and said no new intrusions into Measure S by salaries and pensions. And I do understand it's necessary to affect our policy. I need a way to, in my mind, to work through this and to, I mean, I get it, I understand it, but I need to work. Do we have to make this decision today, by the way?
Madam Mayor, Mayor, City Council, no, you don't have to make this decision today, but I had promised that we'll bring that information back to you, work through the numbers as best as we can, and bring it back on May 20th when we have the follow-up items.
Well, I'd appreciate a little bit of time just to work through it. And I think, personally speaking, I think I owe an explanation to the community if this is the way we go. and I need to, I guess, tailor and fine tune my thoughts on that. So, but we have time. We have time, I guess, a week or so, 2 weeks.
So, but Mr. Galanian, how long will this, is this a lot of staff time that we're talking about to get it finished by May 20th?
Madam Mayor, it will take a substantial amount of time. Yes, like I said, it's not straightforward. Not all of the staff involved in these programs and initiatives are solely, or their salary is solely dedicated to that one effort. So there's a lot of number crunching and research and going back to the historical data of how much time each individual spends on each task. It's going to take a decent amount of time, yes. So perhaps if I can suggest a decision by the next study session on Tuesday, if that's sufficient time for Councilmember Najarian.
Are you in agreement, Councilmember Najarian?
I'll see. I'll do the best I can to try and rationalize this decision.
All right, then we'll await the decision until the next study session. Thank you.
I just want to add, I don't hear any time that how we can be more efficient, how with being more efficient, we're going to need more, or we're going to be less of a people to work on these subjects. All the time it's growing and growing and growing. I mean, a few years ago, the numbers had been reduced, and now we're gonna go back and get to the same point.
Madam Mayor, with all due respect, again, I need to reiterate what I mentioned earlier. We are not adding position count, a head count, to the total number of employees we have in the city by this recommendation.
Madam Mayor, I'd also like to add that this is a relatively new priority for council, despite the best efforts of perhaps individual council members in the past. So I think it's only appropriate that we give staff, once we've given them a directive, to give them the resources by which they can accomplish what we've asked them to do as a collective body. And I appreciate the concerns of my colleagues, but I think we need to also be, we have to make the appropriate allocations for what we tell them.
Right, but I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Galanian, again, but we're speaking now about, not about adding positions or taking away positions. We're speaking about whether to include all of the positions that have been included in Measure S in the past in a study of, I guess, how much that amounts to, and if we should continue that process or protocol.
That is correct, Madam Mayor. That was the request of council Tuesday morning of staff.
Right. So what we'll do then is give Councilmember Najarian a chance to think about this, and if you take a step to take the position, or to address all of these positions that we've been paying through Measure S in the past, and bring it back to us on May 20th. So we'll look forward to that. And then I guess the other council members can put forth their thoughts on this subject. Okay, so let's move on then to the next, the continuation of this budget session.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. Today's budget study session would be the first of 4 study sessions where departments present their budgets. The presentations will include a quick look at the challenges and opportunities during the pandemic, and then a deep dive into the individual departments' proposed budget. And we have 4 departments lined up for you today, starting with our very own city clerk. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Ajemian, for that presentation. Michelle Flynn, our Director of Finance, and Audrey Sayan, our Deputy Director of Finance, as well as the rest of the departments, are available in case you have any questions. With that, Mr. Ajemian.
Mayor Devine and council members, we're starting off with the City Clerk's Department. The City Clerk Department is the custodian of records for the City of Glendale and the city election official. We are composed of three main sections: the City Clerk, Council Board and Commission Support, Election Services, and Records Management. This is where we started in 2020. I think we all remember this. How we have adapted, this is January 19th, 2021. This year we spent time focusing on, this year we spent time focusing on some of the most pressing challenges to face the city during the COVID-19 pandemic. First would be our agenda management system. Second would be council meetings. Third would be records management. Fiscal year 2021, we handled 90 agenda packets that were created by the City Clerk's Department. That included City Council, special City Council meetings, joint housing, and housing authority agendas. We also conducted in 2021 31 City Council meetings, 23 special City Council meetings, 13 joint housing and City Council meetings, 23 housing authority meetings. And fiscal year 2021, we did 1,146 public records requests that were submitted, and we launched our new SharePoint, which handles our public records requests. Our KPIs, we did 1,146 public records requests with 100%. Overview, this is a high-level summary of our department's budget. Salary and benefits are $776,026. Our M&O is $365,451. And our total is $1,141,477. Our personnel, a summary of our position count. 2021 adopted full-time was 6 full-time employees. Hourlies, 1.64. Fiscal year 21-22 proposed 7, and hourly employee 1.64, which makes the total at 8.64 positions.
I will add that the addition of one proposed full-time position in 21-22 will be balanced by eliminating another position, vacant position in another department. So again, the total headcount will not change.
Our funding
So
sources.
it's a lateral move.
Mayor, go ahead.
Mr. Galanian?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt. So it's a lateral move
Yes,
from one department to another?
the position, yes, it would be.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make that clear.
The funding sources, this is the summary of the different buckets of monies. This is 1010 General Fund. Adopted budget for fiscal year 2020-2021 was $1,105,719. The proposed budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 is $1,141,477, an increase of $35,758, an increased percentage of 3.2%. What's next for the city clerks? City clerks is currently working on bringing back passport services, and we are currently working on our records management policy. Any questions?
Questions from my colleagues, if I can see the screen, see them on screen, please?
Yes,
So I can-
Ms.
Yes, hold on. I'm trying to see who has their hand up, so we can go one at a time. If we can have the council members on screen.
Yes, I'm going to stop sharing at this point, Mayor. Give me a second.
Thank you. All right, let's go with Councilmember Agajanian. Go ahead. Thank you. Thank you, Arm.
Can you go back? There was a page which was showing about three
5,000.
department or three tasks that city clerk has to handle it. Can you go back to that page?
Sure, I'm
One
going to
of
start.
them was
Go ahead.
election. The page which was showing the task of city clerks or
Correct.
scope of work of city clerk. Can you go to that page?
Yes, I will open up SharePoint. Give me a second.
Yeah, if you can show that, I will appreciate. Okay, one of them, okay, back to.
Right.
Yes, this is the page. Okay, it says election services. What it includes in that task? Because I thought most of the election matters went to LA County, Secretary of what they call City Clerk of LA County. So what that includes, election services.
Mayor Devine, council members, Councilmember Agajanian, we still do about 40% of the task. What we handle is we prepare the staff report to council calling for and giving notice of elections. We do the published notice of election in English, Spanish, Armenian, Korean, and Tagalog. Collect all documents necessary from the county and prepare packets to give all candidates, including council, GUSD, and GCC board candidates. This includes nomination papers, declaration of candidacy, ballot designation form, FPPC paperwork, plus training. We handle the affidavit of nominee and oath affirmation, candidate workshop. Papers are received from the candidates, then we complete and verify the nomination paperwork. We also send out the letter of qualifications. We work closely with the Register Recorder's Office to identify voting centers. We also facilitate the agreement or the contract. We notice of nominees. We also handle the notice of nominees for public office in all 5 languages, notice of vote centers in 5 locations, organizing and coordinating any public meetings, and we're working with the county to secure and vote by mail ballot boxes. At the end, we'll also work with staff to declare the election results and also certificate of election for candidates who have won the election.
But however, the task of election services are drastically reduced in compared to what the city clerk had before, isn't it?
Correct. About 60% is now handled by the LA County Register's Recorder's Office. Some of the tasks that the person that is in charge to help us in our department with the election, we have assigned her to do public records requests and other tasks necessary for our department.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor? Mayor Devine?
Councilmember Kasaki,
Thank you.
and then Mr. Councilmember Najarian. Go ahead.
One of the things that I think that has changed, and I believe all of us have experienced it during this pandemic, is the way our council meetings are conducted. Obviously, just looking at this study session right now where most of my colleagues are calling in via Zoom, and we've had many other meetings virtually, not Zoom, WebEx, whatever the program or software is of choice. And also we've had residents call in. I know that other cities, even prior to the pandemic, had electronic ways of expressing their views, whether they support or they're against an item. Has your department looked into incorporating that? And if not, can we, Mr. Clerk and Mr. City Manager, Director of Finance, find what it would cost to make the public, to allow the public to be able to interact with us with some of these newfound methods, especially when we were here in these chambers, Mayor Devine and my colleagues, we all know how participation and input from the community was very difficult. We've had these issues of when we hold certain hearings or meetings, depending on when our residents or stakeholders can come to City Hall to participate. I think it would be fantastic if we could open that up more and allow people to interact with us, whether it's through our website, through various portals, and whatever methods are available.
Mayor Devine, council members, Councilmember Kasakian, that's a great question. We are currently looking at a way, it's called e-comments, where people can make comments through our web portal right before the actual council meeting starts to give us some kind of feedback on when we have agendas posted, how they actually feel about an agenda or a topic. That is still in the works. We are still talking with the city manager's office and the city attorney's office to see how we can facilitate this.
I don't have a follow-up question. I would just say that the sooner we can do that, the better, because as we return to the way things were before, for better or worse, I think people will still want to continue to participate the way they were able to, and the question will be hanging in the air as to why we can't do that once we were able to do it for over 12 months.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kasakian. Councilmember Najarian?
Yeah, thank you. So why do we want to get into the passport business? And shouldn't that be a policy decision that council gets involved in?
This was,
Aaron?
Mayor Devine, council members, and Councilmember Najarian. This was something that we started about 1.5 years to 2 years ago. We were looking into it to bring it to the city. At this point, we're looking at the fees and what it does take for us to bring it to the city or back to the city, and then we will have a report out to the council to decide if we want to bring it in the city clerk's department.
Okay, if I remember correctly, we did have passport services 10 years ago, perhaps, and it was not a successful venture. The alternative for our residents is to go 2 blocks down to the post office and have the services done there, or to do a lot of it online now. So before we go too far down this hole and we're asked for another employee to get on the books, I mean, let's think this through before we go down this road.
Yes, Madam Mayor, Member City Council, Councilmember Najarian, you're absolutely correct. And as part of Mr. Ajemian's report to me at this point will be a cost-benefit analysis that we'll take a close look at. And I can guarantee you we will not be adding a position to be able, if approved by City Council, to handle that work.
I'll add my 2 cents to this because it was something that was talked about during my tenure as city clerk. Councilmember Najarian, we were actually approached by the post office and by the federal agency that oversees this process and asked for our help, our assistance in managing the volume. Certainly that has probably taken an impact due to COVID, but in the future it may increase again. So the goal of it was, or the idea was to provide a service to our residents, increase efficiencies. It was something that was done. I'm not entirely certain as to the reasons why it was eliminated at first, but it wasn't because it wasn't necessarily profitable. If nothing else, it would be a cost-neutral service that would be provided to the residents, as is being done currently in Burbank by the Burbank City Clerk's office. And the staff that mans that operation is, at least in Burbank, as my understanding has been, they're hourly employees, they're not full-time employees, and it does not take up much of the time of the city clerk's operation in cities that do provide it.
I mean, is this because they're cutting back on ice? Is that what's going on? That they don't have the staff to process? I mean, it's a federal function, clearly.
At the time, I think it was just the volume. You know, this was pre-COVID. I think there was just a lot of activity. And I think, and City Clerk Ajemian can correct me if I'm wrong, the city clerk's offices that are being recruited into this to help with it would not even be issuing new passports? Would it only be renewals, or is it for the issuance of new passports and not the renewals? It was one or the other that they're limited in doing.
Currently, the U.S. Passport Services has requested that we do renewals and new passports, and including passport cards at this
Okay.
moment.
I didn't get that letter.
Your microphone was off, I think.
Shouldn't council get a letter like that from the federal government about increasing our services before staff goes digging up and preparing reports and things? It seems like a significant issue, not a micromanagement effort, but I mean, if it came from the federal government saying, Glendale, please consider doing passports, I think council should be one of the first bodies in the city to know about that. Anyway, I don't know who did the mail, but
Okay, well, we'll await the report on feasibility. I have a question about the $35,000 increase, and I'm wondering the reason for that increase.
Mayor Devine and council members, the increase of $35,000 is our new AMS system, which is the agenda management system. That is the cost for the $35,000 increase.
Is that a agenda management system?
Correct.
Is that the computer or
Mayor,
electronic?
Mayor Devine and council members, that is the system that we use to write the reports and track the reports and make it easier for us to know where the report is and who's writing the report.
Madam Mayor, you are correct. It's a electronic software that we are utilizing currently, whereas like Mr. Ajemian mentioned, in the past, it was handled manually, and the report would go from office to office for review, and it had to be printed and walked through the office for review and approval. Now everything's done electronically.
Madam Mayor, if I may clarify.
And this is what, a raise in their prices?
Madam Mayor, if I may clarify.
I'm having a hard time hearing.
Sorry, are you able to hear me?
It's very low. The sound is very low. I don't know if the other council members are having that problem.
No, I'm not having that problem.
I can hear the council members. I just cannot hear staff.
Are you able to hear me now? No?
Raise the volume.
There's,
Mayor Devine, can you hear us?
Very, very softly. No one else is having that problem. No.
Oh, excuse me, I also hardly hear, but I can hear. But I hear the council members better, as
Yes.
Madam you mentioned.
I'll speak as loudly as I can. Does that help at all? No?
A bit, not much.
I just wanted to clarify that additional cost of $35,000 is the charge that is increased into the city clerk's budget as a result of the system, but it goes back to our information services department for support and maintenance of all of their equipment, which likely is the increase is a result of the new system. So they have additional costs within information services to maintain and keep that system going, so that cost then gets passed on to the user department.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I have a
Go ahead,
Madam-
Councilmember Agajanian.
But if that extra 35,000, the coming year versus last year is 35,000, but also has been mentioned that they will add one employee. That one employee, whether it's hourly or permanent employee, does not add any cost to this department?
Mayor Devine, Councilmember Agajanian, I have a staff of 4 with me. It makes a total of 5. It does not add a cost to our department.
But you are showing now you're adding a person. How come you add the person and does not raise the cost? That's what
Mayor
I'm not
Devine,
following.
Mayor Devine, council members, Councilmember Agajanian, that number that we're adding was a transfer. It will be It will be taken out next fiscal year. It will go back to a total of 6. That is due to a transfer. That is a number based on the transfer that occurred from management services to the city clerk's department.
So, Madam Mayor, members of council, it does, the additional position does add cost to the city clerk's office, but there are other decreases that offset it. So the 35,000 that you're seeing, the bulk of that is the result of the system and the increased cost to information services. The other decreases offset the increase for that one position in the salaries and benefits.
And Michelle, can you? I was just going to ask Michelle to state what those reductions are, potentially M&Os and vacancies.
Give me 1 second, I'll look at it.
Good afternoon, Mayor Devine and City Council members. My name is Mari Krami, I'm Budget Manager. Ms. Flynn, I can answer that question for you just to save you some time. What happens was that in City Clerk Department, compared to last fiscal year, they have a few more vacant positions. When a position is filled at a higher step, of course, the budget is higher. When a position is budgeted with a vacancy, we budget them at the very low step, at steps 1 and 2 in the salary schedule. That results in less salaries and benefits budget for the department. So no positions were removed for city clerk. It was just a balance between the number of vacancies in the department.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Mr. Agajanian, council member? Doesn't look like it.
I have to look into it further.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions from Mr. Ajemian? Very good report. Nice job.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members.
Madam Mayor, members City Council, next in line is another internal service department, and that would be the city attorney's office that provide legal services. And turn it over to Mr. Garcia for the.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, members of council. As you know, our office is a full-service municipal law office that provides both transactional and advisory assistance as well as litigation services for the city in addition to code enforcement prosecution. Our office is divided into 2 divisions, the Departmental Services Division, which provides the advice and transactional assistance to the departments, the City Council and the City Manager's Office, as well as the litigation and risk management function. So kind of what we've been doing and what I think has happened to every department is when COVID started last year and at the end of last fiscal year or beginning a part of this fiscal year, I think everybody, our office, every department, council members, you had 2 jobs. You were doing your regular job and then reacting to COVID. And so that's kind of what we were having to do. So things, they changed, but they didn't. We still had the job to do. And so that's kind of what we had to do to help the city work through the issues with COVID as well as the general policy issues that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. So some of the things that we worked on include working on emergency public orders as COVID commenced and council wanting to expand upon what the state and the county was doing or tag along with what the state or county was doing. Some other issues, we're working on legal issues related to business and worker assistance programs, some economic development programs, which we'll talk about, as well as working on policy issues related to public health and safety that the council was concerned about. So with respect to the emergency public orders, we, working with the city council and following what the state and the county were doing, sometimes we were implementing those measures, but other times, obviously, the council wanted to do take additional actions, such as adopt a residential eviction moratorium, adopt a commercial eviction moratorium. So we were putting those orders into place, as well as you're aware, there's been litigation brought against the state, the county, and many of the cities, including Glendale, on both the eviction orders and some of the emergency public orders that we're dealing with. We believe all the public agencies involved in these emergency public orders had the lawful authority to do so. And in fact, the Court of Appeal just yesterday ruled that Governor Newsom was within his authority under the Emergency Services Act to adopt emergency orders without going to the legislature for approval. So those are some of the things we're doing with respect to the emergency public orders. In addition, our office was involved with our partner clients, our department clients, on some of the business assistance and worker assistance programs, such as the Hero Pay Ordinance. We had the Hotel Workers Ordinance, which actually was last fiscal year, but something else that we've worked on, and then helping economic development with their alfresco and other business assistance programs. A lot of legal issues come up. Again, a lot of this was so new that we're all kind of dealing with it for the first time together. And so, we had to provide some input there as well. With respect to economic development, these are things that were occurring before COVID and continue to be pressing needs of the city. And so our office was involved in several economic development initiatives that are ongoing and moving forward, such as the Armenian American Museum, which the council approved amendments to and revised entitlements to earlier this year, as well as ongoing efforts as it relates to the Alex Theater. Again, these are initiatives led by the council from a policy level, implemented by the departments, in this case, economic development and community development, but we are very much involved in these programs on a day-to-day basis. And then a number of public health measures that the council sought to implement for the benefit of its residents and for the benefit of consumers and businesses. One such effort had to do with the ban on Mylar balloons, which the city took the lead to be one of the first cities in the state to implement a ban on the sale of Mylar balloons in our city. And I know that other cities are looking at this effort and considering whether to do the same thing. Some other efforts as it relates to public health and safety include the flavored tobacco ban, the ban on single-use plastics, and the revised ADU ordinance. And again, working with the client departments to implement these policies and making sure that they comply with all laws. With respect to some key performance indicators for our office, I'll just go through a couple of them and give you an indication of the type of things that we work on a day-to-day basis. Our Department of Services Division receives numerous legal services requests throughout the year. For the first 3 quarters of this fiscal year, we've already completed 579 of those. Unfortunately, with the number of public records requests that come into the city, the departments all have the responsibility to provide this information, but then often we're involved to make sure that the documents that are being submitted are not privileged, do not have confidential information, and whether or not they need to be withheld for other reasons, other privileges or exemptions. We received a number of claims in this current fiscal year, and we have 278 claims that have been closed or are pending, and that's 172 that were closed and 106 that are still pending. The lawsuits closed and pending, that's broken down, 89 pending lawsuits and 16 that have closed, meaning by closed we mean they've either gone to trial or they've been disposed of by motion or voluntary dismissal. I would say the 89 that are pending, I think, is a record since I've been here, and that undoubtedly has to do with COVID. The courts slowed down in terms of processing cases, so a lot of the cases are still there that may have been disposed of at some point, but that hasn't stopped people, unfortunately, from suing us. So that number, from what I can recall, is the highest that I can remember in my time here. With respect to our budget, our salary and benefits number is about $4.6 million, and our M&O maintenance operations is $9 million, and that's mostly the liability fund, which I'll talk about in just a second. So our personnel count, we have 20 full-time employees and another 2.3 of hourly full-time equivalents. And again, that's 12 lawyers, 1 paralegal, We have on our insurance side, we have an insurance analyst, and then we have support staff providing assistance to our department. With respect to the general fund, you see, and again, that's mostly the personnel part of the budget for the general fund. So that's a constant. That increase is negligible and is associated with, I assume, just cost of living and whatnot. The liability fund, you'll see that increase of $762,000, and over $550,000 of that is attributable to our excess insurance coverage. The cost of purchasing excess insurance is increasing steadily, and that's not unique to Glendale. Just a couple of factors that go into that. One, you're seeing generally with COVID, the insurance companies are earning less interest-wise, and so as a result, they're basically charging more to purchase insurance. Some of the activities that insurance companies insure for municipal agencies has become more expensive nationally, so that impacts all municipalities, whether or not they have the same problem. So, for example, we know that insuring law enforcement agencies, even though we have a very good claims experience with our police department, it's just become more expensive because of the trends that are going on nationally. And so we unfortunately have to bear the brunt of that. A couple other factors. The only thing I would say is unique to Glendale is we have our recent claims history over the last 5-6 years. We have a couple of cases where the increase is where we've had large payouts due to two cases that were settled by our insurance company over our self-insured retention of $2 million. So that's largely the basis or the reason for that increase in our cost to our liability insurance fund. And then some of the things that we'll be working on, as you're aware, for the next fiscal year are our clean energy programs. Not only looking at the repower of Grayson, but obviously some of the clean energy programs that the council included within the integrated resources plan. Our office is working day to day, literally day to day, with GWP on these programs. We also have working with community development to provide some information to council on new state laws that are affecting our land use authority. That's something that the council is very concerned about. And then we do anticipate working on campaign finance and election issues starting this summer, clean up to the campaign finance ordinance and addressing some of the requests for changes asked by council members. And then looking at the request by council to have a discussion about potentially changing to council districts. So those are some of the things that we'll be working on for the next fiscal year, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from my colleagues? Certainly seems like you've had a handful of work to do this year, Mr. Garcia.
We all have.
Any questions, comments?
My question,
Mr. Saki.
thank you, Mayor Devine. My question is regarding the staffing and how we compare to other cities of our size. We have 20 full-time staff. You said 12 of them attorneys. How many attorneys does, say, our neighboring cities? I know Pasadena has some different functions in their city attorney division, but say, for instance, compared to cities of similar size, where do we rank, if anyone can answer that?
Councilmember Kasakian, I'd say, based on my understanding of, for example, Burbank and Pasadena, we are on average with them. Like as you noted, Pasadena has a criminal prosecution unit that has a number of attorneys that's beyond what we have here in Glendale. But we have similar attorneys advising, on planning issues and real estate and the utility. I would say we probably have more resources for directed towards the utility and public works specifically than maybe the other cities do. But I know that their civil law departments range in the range of 9 to 11 attorneys. So at 12 attorneys, I think we're right around there. And again, I think just the sheer workload that some of the departments have, we've decided it's necessary to have attorneys dedicated full-time to those departments.
Some departments require more
Correct.
time than others. How what is the average load, or what is the most number of departments you have any single attorney handling, and the least? If you can give us some specifics and examples.
Sure. So we have two, I would say, generalists in the office that would handle. There's one that works with finance and fire and finance, fire, city clerk, ISD, and there's one that I'm as HR. But again, some of those departments also have other attorneys working on specific assignments for them. And then I have another attorney who's also a generalist working with community services and parks, and library and treasurer's office, and a lot of work from those departments as well. But as you know, the utility has a lot of activity going on in general, and right now specifically. So we have I would say 1 3/4 attorneys assigned to them full time. And then we have the police has an assigned attorney, and Public Works has, I want to say, 1.5, 1 3/4 attorneys assigned to it. So that's the breakdown.
I don't know when it.
Can I ask, and I hate to interrupt, but can we clear the screen of sharing so we can see the speakers? Thank you.
I think it would be helpful for us to see that breakdown as you just outlined it, because I was trying to take notes and write it as
I
quickly
can
as
certainly
possible.
put it together
but
in
I
written
think,
format.
sure, I think it would be good for us to just have that as part of our discussion as we're looking at how we allocate resources.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions for Mr. Garcia?
Oh, maybe, if I might, Mr. Mayor, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember.
Yeah, well, a question and then a comment. So the question is, when you do work when the legal department does work for GWP or for Public Works, you're charging those out to the enterprise accounts?
So that attorney time is cost allocated to the departments, and I could let Ms. Flynn explain how that process works.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Brotman. So all what we call central support departments, that would be city clerk, city attorney, human resources, my department in finance, management services, city treasurer. Hopefully I'm not forgetting any. IPA.
ISD.
No, ISD is actually in an internal service fund. So there you have a similar structure, but generally the central support departments annually prior to the budget season, it's kind of how we kick off our budget season. Our consultant that handles our cost allocation plan comes in and reviews all the activity in those central support departments, and there is an allocation methodology based on the tasks and the individuals in those departments that work on those various tasks. And it spreads the cost of those central support departments out to the user departments. So the enterprise operations, the internal service funds, in some cases we can charge certain grant funds, but not all, and then other general fund operations. So there's a chargeback that happens. It's a very standard methodology that is utilized in municipal government to charge back those services.
So like roughly how much of the total salary cost of the legal department is hitting the general fund, and how much is in either the enterprise funds or, like you said, some of the grants that we get?
Madam Mayor, council members, Councilmember Brotman, the rule of thumb is about 50%. That's kind of the gauge. It can range from 50 to 60, sometimes a little bit higher, depending on the year, because in some years there could be something that's triggering a little bit higher cost allocated out to a different department or a enterprise operation. And then in other cases, in the next year, then it would just be a regular. But our rule of thumb is around 50%.
And so when we see these numbers for general fund, budget dollars like we saw in the chart earlier, and then we see the number of FTEs. So really, it's not a one-to-one comparison, because the dollars we're seeing in the general fund is really probably only half of the cost of those FTEs. Is that
No,
correct?
Madam Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Brotman, no. You're seeing the full cost in the general fund. The chargeback comes through in the revenue category of interfund revenue in the general fund. So the
Oh,
offset
okay.
comes
So when we
through on
look
the
at those
revenue side.
numbers, so that 20 FTE is associated, that's the cost of that 20 FTE and the hourlies, right?
Correct.
And then it gets, okay. And the only comment I was going to say was to Mike, which is that when I looked at the things you mentioned, it looks like a very small sliver of the stuff I've seen you working on. So I think you could have added probably 10 more slides there.
Probably.
Thank you. All right. If no other questions or comments, thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you.
Good job. Thank you. Next.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. I hope you like these new methods of presentation and the formatting as much as I do, with use of images and graphics as opposed to black and white and only words. Next up is Human Resources Department, another central support service provided to the departments and the city, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Doyle, our Human Resources Director.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm here representing Human Resources today for the budget study session. Human Resources is responsible for all employment-related services, including recruitment, testing, staff to the Civil Service Commission, employee relations, labor relations, workers' compensation, and employee health services. We are an internal service department, similar to finance and the ISD department. However, we do try to be an outward-facing department on matters relating to outreach recruitment. We like to have a social media presence, and we participate in job fairs and things like that. We are composed of 4 separate divisions. The Human Resources Administration is probably the largest section within our department. This covers, again, the main core functions of human resources, such as recruitment and selection, again, our staffing to civil service, the employee relations, labor relations, training, as well as the things relating to just providing service to each of our departments. The Benefits Administration section is, and again, the Human Resources Administration is the main section. The other 3 are more of a specialty areas. Benefits covers, of course, the health insurance related services that are provided and the people that are covered by that. Employee health services is a small unit consisting of 1 employee dealing with really the assurance of making sure that our employees are health safe, they're working in a safe and efficient manner. We do a lot of the pre-placement physicals and regulatory type exams. They've had a big role in the COVID-19 situation, which we'll cover. Workers' compensation, of course, is a system in place designed to address work-related injuries of employees. Where we started, this is a holiday photo from 2019. You see lots of happy people congregated together. Where we have adapted, this is the same event 1 year later. Again, a group of happy people who are socially distant. This year we spent a lot of time focusing on a lot of challenges to the city, mainly relating to the COVID-19 pandemic. And we'll talk about each of these in some depth, but the first being a pandemic response and all the work that we had to do to ensure that our employees were being taken care of, and that any situations occurring where someone caught COVID or was exposed to someone with COVID was addressed. And this was done throughout the department, but mainly focused within our again, very small employee health department. We will talk about the GMA and GCA MOU 1-year agreements that we were able to do. Again, right as the COVID situation was just emerging. We'll talk about some efforts that we made to automate a lot of our processes and make things far more efficient. And we sort of used the COVID pandemic to really make some improvements in how we operate. Additionally, we'll talk about public safety and essential position recruitments. Just because we were impacted by COVID, it didn't mean that we didn't have very important job to do, continuing to fill some of our essential positions. Additionally, we'll talk a bit about implicit bias training and some of the efforts that we undertook over the past year in that regard. And also, we'll talk a bit about unemployment insurance claims. As you might imagine, with what occurred following the pandemic, there was a lot of activity in that area. I do want to start out with the pandemic response. And again, come March, April of last year, our mission kind of got turned on its head. Our very small employee health unit really had their mission cut out for them. And we had to deal with all of the various issues organization-wide relating to medical issues relating to quarantining, exposures, providing appropriate leave for employees who either caught COVID or were exposed to it, and of course making sure that upon returning to work everyone was screened appropriately. This employee health unit does work in consultation with the Glendale Adventist Occupational Medical Clinic, which is a contract service provided within our budget. There were a total of 249 positive COVID tests amongst our city employees since the start of the pandemic, and similar to what a lot of organizations experienced. It started out rather slow back in April of last year. We saw a bit of a increase in the summertime, then it slowed down, and then in I would say December and January, this past December, January, we just saw our caseloads skyrocket. Much of what we had seen throughout the county and also throughout the country. Much of the work that we had to do in dealing with COVID was just keeping up with the new laws and regulations that were passed both at the federal, state, and county, local levels. Laws were put in place April of 2020 relating to COVID-related leave. And again, we had to ensure that for each and every one of these cases of 249 that we had, that we gave these individuals the appropriate leave that they were entitled to under the law. That particular federal law was supposed to expire at the end of the calendar year, December 31st. And so we did choose to extend it, and because we were experiencing just a high number.
I think your mic cut out.
It went off.
Can't hear Matt. Has Matt been disconnected or?
Yes.
They're switching out a microphone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My apologies for that. Technical difficulties. Again, as I was stating, much of what we did was trying to keep up with federal, state law relative to the COVID regulations and making sure that we were complying with, again, Cal OSHA, LA County Department of Health, and all the regulations that occurred over the course of the past year. Moving on, again, I want to talk about the MOU agreements that we attained in our labor negotiations. Again, last year when COVID hit, we were just beginning the process of labor negotiations with the GCEA and the GMA. And again, at this time, there was great uncertainty as far as what our revenues and budget could handle at the time. And we're, to some degree, we're still in that realm. But those two bargaining units, GCA and GMA, did come forward to really help out the organization get through this the situation that we're in. And they both agreed to what we would call status quo one-year agreements that we were able to quickly put together and stave off any further impact or harm to our employees. And again, these are our employees that worked steadily through the course of the pandemic and quite heroically. Because these were one-year agreements, we're back with those two bargaining units as well as our Firefighters Association. And it seems like the new normal for negotiations is going to be through some form of a remote process. As you can see on the screen, this happens to be firefighters, but nevertheless, it'll probably be our new normal for labor negotiations. Next up, I do want to talk about some of the improvements we made as far as automating our processes. And this was a completely unanticipated series of accomplishments. Like so much of what occurred last year was unanticipated. Because of the pandemic, we essentially re-engineered many of our day-to-day operational procedures to accommodate the remote work arrangement and to eliminate person-to-person contact and various touch points. And we found that many of these processes not only were far more efficient, but we think that we're going to keep most of them in place even post-pandemic. A couple of examples are essentially digitizing all of our forms, and us being human resources, we do have a lot of forms in place, and that means less paper, and we're able to establish electronic signatures for these forms. We also automated our workflows tremendously, so if things had to be passed around or walked around previously, we were able to send those things electronically. And I'm talking about things like new hire onboarding, open enrollment for our medical insurance, our performance evaluations. We're able to adapt and handle those remotely with electronic signatures, and even our separation process. Again, very efficient and certainly more environmentally friendly. I do want to talk about our recruitment a bit and some of the public safety and essential positions that we went ahead and proceeded with. When the pandemic hit last year, a lot of employers were kind of flat-footed. Many went into the hiring freeze mode and really just stopped recruiting altogether. We did enact a hiring freeze as well, but we realized we had many essential positions, mainly in the public safety area, that we just had to move on. And particularly, a particular concern was our police department, making sure that we kept up with that. And just even in normal times, it's hard to keep up with the turnover in that particular profession. In dealing with both, just the regular turnover and retirements. So within weeks of the pandemic started, we actually did get started up again with some, again, key positions, and they were mostly in police, fire, but other areas as well. We had to do an integrated waste recruitment for truck drivers and various other essential positions. This caused us to have to recalibrate again how we do exams, the written exams, whereas in the past we were able to cram 300, 350 people in the civic auditorium. In this instance, we had to shorten that up to make it maybe 25 or even 50 people in that large building in order to establish social distancing. The performance exams, the practical physical agility type exams were very challenging as well. We had to deal with those in a socially distant way. We took temperatures, we required masks, sanitizing equipment and such. It was very challenging. Of course, also pretty much all of our recruitment processes conclude with some form of an oral interview. And again, a good number of those we ended up doing remotely, utilizing the various applications that are out there. There's one called Whereby, there's WebEx, of course, and Microsoft Teams. And again, we think with this approach, we were able to keep up the hiring process and keep this organization going to some degree. The implicit bias training, I did want to mention that, and I think the council is aware that the Human Resources Department does lots of training, and unfortunately with the pandemic, we had to shift many of them to remote. A lot of them we just canceled altogether because of the difficulty in having employees congregated together for training classes. One thing we did want to make sure happened was some focus on implicit bias. And this occurred obviously in light of what happened last summer with the George Floyd incident and really the nationwide unrest and dialogue that followed. We felt it was important to introduce this concept to our organization, its leaders, and its managers and supervisors. And I felt it was a good dialogue. I think it really raised a lot of awareness in a constructive way. Again, we started with our council members, executives, and then we've slowly continued to introduce the subject to our upper managers and mid-managers. And again, next year we hope to do this program, extend it to more employees. I do want to mention also the processing of unemployment insurance claims. And as you might expect, due to the shutdown of the economy last year, we had a record number of unemployment claims filed involving people who formerly worked for the city of Glendale and lost their jobs, or current hourly employees whose programs were either eliminated or just saw their hours reduced. And again, we saw a steady increase in claims filed, almost by tenfold as soon as the pandemic began. I mention this not only because it took a tremendous effort to process these claims, but also because there was so much fraud in the system, and I'm sure you all have, seen and read about fraud in California with the Employment Development Department. We had to be very, very careful to process these claims and ensure that there weren't situations where people were fraudulently getting benefits at our cost. And unfortunately, we did identify some cases which we're dealing with, and we are working very closely with the Glendale Police Department on addressing those cases. The next slide highlights just a couple of quantifying factors within our department, some KPIs. Work-related exposures related to COVID, and I had said that we had 249 positive cases involving our employees. 27 of those, and I will say only 27 of those, were found to be related to some type of exposure on the job. The majority, again, close to 90%, were ones that people acquired off the job, either through family or other social means. Virtual recruitments held 18 out of the 60, and this involves oral interview boards. I had indicated that we did a lot of those virtually, utilizing these various applications. And I would have thought it would have been more than this, but so many of the interview panels that we did involved police and fire, and they preferred to have these done in person, socially distanced. So again, we had 18 that were done virtually, and the remainder were done in person. The number of managers who completed the implicit bias trainings, 308. We actually had a total of 317 participate, because we included, again, the elected officials, as well as some representatives from GUSD and Glendale Community College. And then again, the increase in the unemployment insurance it ended up being year over year, 575%. An overview of the department and our budget. This is a little confusing. I do have a relatively small department, but all of the costs for our health benefits, as well as workers' compensation costs citywide are included within our department's budget. So that's what makes up the bulk of the $54 million figure that you see there. As far as personnel, we essentially have 23 salaried positions and 3 part-time or hourly positions. And again, the bulk of those are in the general HR administrative area. The funding sources, and this is a bunch of them, and this is what comprises that $54 million. You see the general fund, again, the majority of our human resources administration and training is comprised there. And in Fund 1010, that's about $3.3 million. The unemployment insurance fund pays just that, the unemployment costs, and that went up significantly to $360,000. The compensation insurance fund covers both employee health services as well as the workers' compensation costs. That's a significant amount, $17 million. And then funds 6150, 60, and 70 are the accounts that have been set up by finance to address the costs of our health benefits programs. And you see that's quite a significant amount. The last 3 are sort of unusual accounts that have been set up. The Employee Benefits Fund addresses compensated absences, vacation leave and sick leave. I'm sorry, vacation leave and comp time leave. This is what, again, the finance department puts that money aside in case individuals have to cash out their unused accumulated vacation or comp time leaves. The RHSP, that benefits fund, that stands for Retiree Health Savings Plan. That's about $1 million, and again, that relates to unused sick leave that gets converted to retiree health savings. It's something that the employees have negotiated over the years. And then 6420 relates to various retirement-related funds that are managed by the finance department. Again, the bulk of our work is done in this general fund, about $3.3 million. This is, again, the recruitment, training, civil service, employee labor relations area. The compensation insurance fund, again, covers employee health services and workers' compensation. Again, similar to our health benefits, these funds fluctuate based on claims filed and really how expensive some of those claims end up being. We do see an increase of 6.9%, which is not unusual when we're dealing with these types of costs, but nevertheless, again, it's a significant part of our budget. And then the medical insurance fund, again, this relates to the health benefits that we offer. We have the full range of programs for, again, medical and other health-related services. We have a PPO through Anthem. We have an HMO through Anthem Blue Cross. We have 2 Kaiser plans, and we have a high-deductible PPO plan as well. The employees pay a portion of the premium for their medical insurance, and the city pays a portion of it. And again, it amounts to citywide basis about $25 million. Our health benefits are quite substantial. We again have not just the employees that are covered, but all of their dependents as well, and some retirees who choose to remain on the plan at their own cost. But essentially, this amounts to ensuring it's almost 4,000 lives if you count the dependents and retirees as well. What's next for human resources? Again, some issues that stand out. We obviously have to resolve our labor contracts with the GCEA, GMA, and GFFA. Again, our employees in these 3 groups, have really come well together during the pandemic, and we certainly want to be fair in addressing their upcoming MOU negotiations as well. We also do want to continue to coordinate the post-pandemic return to work environment, not only ensuring that people get back to work safely, but really rethinking how we want to go about accomplishing our work and looking at things that did work effectively during the pandemic, such as some options to continue remote working, and again, a lot of the automation efforts and working smarter in general. Recruitment-wise, we want to continue doing what we're doing to make sure that we're keeping up with vacancies and retirements, and looking at possibly doing some more remote type of interviews. I recently had the recruitment for the general manager of Glendale Water and Power, and I worked with a consultant, and he told me that he's been doing interviews by Zoom for years. And while it was very new to all of us, it's actually something that can be quite effective under the right circumstances. Our employee assistance program is very important for our employees. Again, this has been a challenging year for, I think, everyone dealing with the pandemic, family issues, and the not seeing people as we normally do. And we want to make sure we continue making our employee assistance program available to our employees and dealing with the stress and anxiety that we've seen a lot over the past year. And then lastly, as far as our training and development programs, we want to get these back going again and pick up on them, and probably do more in a remote webinar type format as opposed to the having to do everything in person. One thing that we are already starting on is the workplace harassment training. Instead of doing that in large groups, we are now doing that on demand virtually, and it should be a lot more efficient and easy for our employees, all of whom have to take this program over the next year. So with that, I think that covers pretty much what I wanted to cover in HR. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for you.
Councilmember Agajanian.
Yes. So human resources have four, I guess, division. I don't know what you call it. Let's assume you call division. You said human resource administration, benefit administration, employment, health, and workers' compensation.
Yes, sir.
So could you tell me how many people are in each section or division?
Certainly. Again, I have 23 in the entire department, 23 salaried. In Human Resources Administration, I have 15 budgeted positions. In Benefits Administration, there are 3. Employee Health Services, there's one individual. And again, that individual carried a very heavy load this past year due to the COVID issues. And then in Workers' Compensation, we have 4.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Councilmember Najarian.
Thank you. I want to talk about workers' compensation, Matt. It's we're asking for 17 million out of the 50-some million budget, and in workers' compensation, just for, I'm sure everyone's pretty much familiar with it, but it covers workers, employees who are injured, and they make a claim to the city. It's not based on any fault. It just has to be an injury related to their work. They typically hire an attorney, sometimes not, but most savvy employees hire an attorney. They start treating, they submit their claim to our, currently we have a third-party administrator. Is that correct, Matt?
Mayor Devine, Councilmember Najarian, we actually have a hybrid program where half of our claims are done with a third-party administrator, and that company is called AdminSure, and the remaining claims are done in-house. Probably the most complex, costly, and complicated claims are those involving police and fire, because they're the employees that tend to get in the most hazardous situations and get injured the most. And so the AdminSure, the third-party administrator, handles all claims for police and fire. The rest, Public Works, GWP, Parks, are all handled in-house with our own staff.
Okay, so part of the claims adjusting process is paying for necessary and reasonable medical expenses, as well as a schedule to determine the percentage of disability that the employee has received, whether it's temporary or permanent, and money is paid out. But the largest part of those claims typically are the medical bills that are out there. It's my understanding that there are companies out there who specifically do medical bill review and determine whether the bills that are submitted by the employee are necessary and reasonable and not inflated. I am familiar with Metro. We've got a huge workers' compensation department, and we spend huge money. We have a special company that reviews those bills, surveys the medical providers in the region, and comes up with an appropriate amount. So the claimant could say, well, I went to the chiropractor and I've got a bill for $10,000. This company will come in and say, oh, no, that chiropractor was charging you $200 a visit. The appropriate amount in the industry in this region is $100. And by that means those bills are cut down and then handed off to the adjuster, who will use those numbers in adjusting the claim and adjusting the workers' compensation payment. We do not have one of those specialized companies working in the city. We used to. Our neighboring cities do, Burbank, Pasadena, and others. I understand that bill review is done in-house by our third-party administrator, AdminSure, but their focus and their expertise is not bill review. I would like support from the council to review this process and see if it wouldn't help the city to have a specific bill review company handle at least the screening of these bills, the appropriate costing of these bills, in the adjusting of these workers' compensation claims. And if we can save money doing that, great for us. If it comes back and it looks like we can't save any, then it was at least we looked into it. But it's my understanding we have opportunities to save money, significant money, and that we're just not doing it because we're happy with AdminSure because, we're happy with it. It's not that they're doing a bad job, but there's a better effort that can be placed to save us on the expense side.
Mayor
I would like
Mayor Devine.
I will not support it.
Okay, may I, Mayor
I
Devine,
think we'll all support that, council member.
may I
All right,
correct?
so that's,
Mayor Devine, may I correct something that was just said? It was stated that we do not have a bill review component of our workers' comp, and that is completely not true. The city has, again, we have a bifurcated system where we have police and fire claims that are handled by a third-party administrator, and we have the remaining claims that are handled in-house. And for the in-house claims, we do have actually there is a bill review function for both components, both the in-house program and the TPA program. We have a company, it's called Lean On Me, that is currently contracted with the city. They do the claims, the bill review claims for our in-house claims, the ones that are handled in-house. The ones that are handled by the third-party administrator, AdminSure, they also have a bill review component, but it's in the same company. It is managed by the AdminSure organization. And again, they handle, when we hire a third-party administrator, and I think it was a very wise thing to have done several years ago, part of the deal was that they would do not only all of our claims, but they would also do the bill review and utilization review and sort of a full service function. So again, we are already doing this, and again, we have contracts in place with a company that does bill review for the non-TPA claims, and it's part of our contract with AdminSure to have the bill review done by their firm for those claims. And they both do a good job at adjudicating these and reviewing these bills. You know, I would say both Lean On Me and AdminSure look at the bills. They have standards that they look at, and I would say both of them are in the neighborhood of getting maybe 70 to 75% reduced on each of those bills. So again, this is already happening, and again, we have professional services agreements in with both of these companies to do so. With Lean On Me, I believe our current PSA goes through June of this year, so we'll be looking to re-up that PSA, and I believe we will do so. With AdminSure, for all the services they provide, I believe our contract with them runs through September 30th of 2022. So we have another year with them, at which point we'll look at that as well. But again, these are contractual obligations that we have right now in place.
Did council vote on those contracts? I don't remember that. It might have slipped by on a consent, but I don't remember any of that. And I don't remember a competition or an RFP coming before us where we made that decision, which is what we should do. I mean, this is what we need to do as council, is to try and make sure that we get the very best performance and contract in any department, unless this is below a certain threshold.
No, the Mayor Devine, members of council, these items did come before the city council. Again, our first experience with AdminSure began in I believe it was October of 2016, and then it was for 3 years, and it got renewed in 2019, I believe. And we've been doing business with Lean On Me, for at least over 10 years that I'm aware of. And again, both of those were done through a competitive process. So.
Yeah, nevertheless, I'd like to review that. I've also in the past brought up certain workers' compensation defense attorneys who are very successful and aggressive in defending these cases. Metro uses several of them. And I'm not blaming you, Matt, but I'm blaming several prior city managers. I mean, back with Jim Starbird, I was talking about this. I repeated it with Ochoa, again with Yasmin. I can't pin this on Rubik. He's too young in the process. But I mean, this is a high cost category that we have to work on really containing the costs. And whatever we can do, we should at least look into this and see if we can contain costs. If we can't, if everything's perfect, you know, hunky-dory, fine. But I think we need to review this because it's a significant amount. $17 million is a significant number.
Mayor Devine?
Councilmember Brotman.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. I was going to ask something similar, but you know, listening to this back and forth, I'm thinking that maybe it would be helpful. I know it would be helpful to me to see some comparative metrics across some of our neighboring cities to see how what's the actual performance as far as what they're paying out. And I know it's different for different categories of employees, but maybe there's a way to adjust for that to see whether there's any pattern that we are in fact, you know, paying out more, or we're pretty much on par with everybody else. Because I don't, you know, I agree. I mean, I see that number. It's big, it's shocking, but I just don't have any way to judge whether that's par for the course or what. I was going to ask Matt, just the increase though of over $1 million from last year is, I mean, the projected increase that you're budgeting, is that COVID or is that something else?
You know, Mayor Devine, Councilmember Brotman, it's really hard to say, and again, and I think what we're being asked to do is going to be a little challenging because it really depends on the number and types of claims that come through. We could have, a relatively minor set of claims that occur, and something, really serious. We could have a gunshot wound or a someone getting burned or something like that. So it's really, really hard to say. But what's going into this projected figure of an increase is really based upon what our anticipated claims are. But as I understand it, when someone files workers' compensation and it's a serious type of injury, our adjusters, whether it's the third-party administrator or the people we have in-house, have to estimate what they believe that injury is going to cost us in the long run, and they have to set aside that money. And this is based on, and again, you're all correct. This is based largely on medical costs, although a big factor in the cost also is essentially lost time. The amount of time people are off, we have to compensate them for the time that they're not at work. But really, it's hard to attribute this increase. But there are slight increases in things like we pay about $500,000 to the state of California. They call it the State User Fee Fund. That gets increased pretty much every year. So that went up about $50,000 in the last year alone. We have, again, projected claims that go up. Similar to with the liability fund, our excess insurance went up by almost $100,000. Any claim that exceeds $2 million has to be covered by an excess insurance fund. So it's just a variety of factors and really challenging to pinpoint, but it really just depends on the types of injuries that you see.
Yeah, I understand that. I think, though, it may vary year to year, and there's an unusual claim one year. But I think if you're looking over a number of years and you're looking at different cities, we should be able to benchmark ourselves. I mean, we all know that there's tons of fraud in this space, and so I think it would be. I mean, I'm with Councilmember Najarian and probably everybody else in really kind of feeling uncomfortable about this. It feels like we have no control, and I'm sure that's not the case, but it just I think it would be helpful to know where we stand and are we doing everything we can to control these costs.
Mayor, members of council, I concur with that, and to say it's not something we have control over. I mean, of course, that's not true, but I will say it's of all the work that I have to do in human resources, this is the most frustrating because it is a no-fault system. It's a very liberal system in the state of California. The workers' compensation judges are very employee-oriented. We may have a case that we think is something relatively minor, and it gets turned into something that ends up being fairly major. We have cases where, on its face, it may appear to be something not even work-related at all. Yet, a claimant will get a good attorney and bring it to the workers' comp court system and the various appellant judges there, and usually they get their way in that forum, and that's just kind of the way things are. But I agree with all of you. It's a challenging system. It's a liberal system in the state, and again, it's been something I've found very frustrated ever since I've been in charge of things around in HR.
And all that said, Madam Mayor, Member City Council, we will provide, Matt and staff will do the research and provide the comparison, the numbers with our neighboring cities per employee. And again, what Mr. Doyle mentioned, it depends on the number of cases and the nature of the cases, but we'll provide that information to you.
And if I may include who they're using for these tasks. Are they using Lean On Me and AdminSure, or are they using the company that Councilmember Najarian mentioned as well? Matt, I have a question for you about retirees. How many did we have this year?
If you're talking about year 2020, I believe We had 47 retirements in this past year, which
And
is
were any of those because, were any of those because of disabilities or who had been on workman's comp and used,
of those 47, 7 were industrial disability retirement related. There were 5 in the police department and 2 in the fire department.
okay, I wondered about safety. Okay, thank you. Appreciate the report. If no one else has any comments, thank you for the your continued recruitment during this time and for your anti-bias training and the harassment. I think those are great programs that you're providing for employees and us, the elected officials. Thank you, Matt, very much. And moving on.
Yes, moving on, Madam Mayor, members of City Council, the last department, but certainly not the least, is Community Service and Parks, one of our outward-facing departments that has a direct and significant impact on the quality of life for our residents because parks make life better. Right, Mr. Bolanikian?
Mr. Galanian, absolutely. Can you hear me? Is it on?
Right.
Great. Madam Mayor, members of the council, thank you. I'll be presenting all the good work our department has done the last year. And we'll start with a few slides. Just how Mr. Golanian mentioned, parks do make life better. That's our motto, actually statewide, created by the California Parks and Recreation Society. Our department is composed of 5 main divisions. The first division is Park Services and Park Planning. This includes park maintenance, park development, and park projects. Recreation and Community Services section. This section includes our 4 community centers, civic auditorium, sports complex, our aquatic facilities and programs, special events, contract classes, and building reservations and picnic shelter reservations. Central administration consists of basically our budget team and also our grant management section. Human Services section is divided into 3 sections. We have our Senior Services section. They provide senior meals and case management to the seniors in Glendale. Our CDBG section and our Homeless Services section, which provides funding and assistance to a number of nonprofit organizations providing homeless services in Glendale. And our Workforce Development section includes Verdugo Job Center and Glendale Youth Alliance. Our department also works with a number of boards and commissions. We have the Parks, Recreation, Community Services Commission, CDBG Advisory Board, Senior Services Committee, Glendale Youth Alliance, the Glendale Continuum of Care, Workforce Development, and Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation. Where we started in 2020, before the pandemic, we were running a number of programs providing services to the residents. We had our One Glendale After Schools youth sports program, number of special events, year-round aquatics, our Trails and Open Space program, our volunteer work days up in our trails, park projects, park maintenance, and of course, opening of a number of playgrounds. How we have adapted. Our services have changed starting March 13th of 2020. We have had a number of virtual events that I'll go into later on in the presentation, expanded our meal delivery service, homeless outreach, drive-by events, and our childcare program. So this year we spent time focusing on some of the most pressing challenges facing our city during the COVID-19 pandemic. Senior services, we provided a number of meals, which I will get into in a little bit. Child care programs, homeless and emergency hotel programs, virtual employment and business services. Virtual programs, we had our teen night outs, Youth and Family Services and the STAR program, COVID-19 vaccination site at a number of our facilities. We increased our park services work orders and work order hours related to COVID-19. With all the LA County protocols changing, we had asked staff to change the way we operate. And of course, our American Green Zone Alliance certification to 8 sites throughout the park system, renovation of ball fields and restrooms, and our special events reimagined. So starting with senior services, our meal program, meal services increased 250%. Before COVID, we were serving 3,600 meals a month. We increased that to 14,000 meals per month. Due to LA County protocols, the dining rooms, both at Spar Heights and Adult Recreation Center, were shut down, and they are currently shut down. We began our frozen meal delivery service immediately, and we also began our brown bag lunch pickup at Spar Heights Community Center and Adult Recreation Center. Our case management increased by 25%. We also expanded our care calling program, collaborated with the Glendale Police Department and volunteers, and our case managers continue to call our seniors that are part of our program and conducting wellness checks. We also started the cooling fan assistance program. Due to LA County protocols, our facilities were closed, and we weren't allowed to open up the facilities the first half of the summer season. So we provided 344 fans to the residents, to the seniors in Glendale. Eventually, we were allowed to open up our facilities as cooling stations, and we opened up Griffith Manor, Pacific, and Maple, depending on programs at those facilities. We also provided 300 hygiene bags to our seniors, 500 masks and hand sanitizers. $4,000 was allocated through our Meals on Wheels of America for pet grant. We basically provided $100 to 40 seniors to provide meals and pet supplies to their pets. And we have received also additional funding, and council approved the funds a few weeks ago to provide breakfasts daily to 300 seniors as part of additional Meals on Wheels of America program that funded that program. The child care program, this program was funded through Measure S and CDBG CARES Act funding. We currently operate Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 6 sites with 13 pods. So far we have served 5,200, little over 5,200 duplicated students. We do collaborate with Glendale Unified, and they provide lunch and snacks daily to all of our participants. We provide the facilities, childcare, Wi-Fi, and electric devices if needed to the students participating in the program. As part of the main core of the program is 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., where they log on and log on to their classes and work on their schoolwork. And between 2 and 6, we provide childcare, recreation programming, homework help to all of our participants. The next slide is our homeless and emergency hotel program. We received funds through our ESG CARES Act funding in the amount of $3.6 million. Part of those funds were used to place 61 homeless clients into the hotel program. We have 2 programs, one which was LA County's Project Room Key. We were committed, and we received commitment through LA County that we can house 15 individuals in Project Room Key at Vagabond Inn, and an additional 38 clients were placed in Glendale Cares hotel project throughout hotels in Glendale and the LA area. During the COVID-19, and when I say during COVID-19, and we continue to provide and increase our outreach, we have worked with our senior meals program and provided individual meals daily to the clients that were part of our hotel program. And we continue to work with outreach with Essentia and also Glendale Police Department and providing services to the unsheltered population. Our virtual employment business services and COVID-19 support, we have paid out over $570,000 in COVID grants for supportive services, assisting clients in utility bills, car payments, insurance, medical insurance, and rent. We have also received in $2.8 million in COVID relief funds through CDBG. Those funds were allocated to business recovery and rental assistance through our community development, employee development department, and also, economic development department, and child care services that is being handled by parks. Virtual programs, we've had a number of programs. Seniors, we have senior programs, exercise classes, line dancing presentations, youth and family services, teen night out, our STAR program, teen resource fair. We have also worked on a number of videos posted online for our Trails and Open Space program. We have 17 videos actually. Total views for our programs, 5,532 views citywide. Our COVID-19 vaccination shot sites, we've worked closely with Glendale Fire Department and the Police Department to provide the Adult Recreation Center, Civic Auditorium, for vaccination sites. At the ARC, we provided 167 seniors, 334 doses. At the Civic Auditorium, provided 2,700 vaccinations for an amount of 5,400 doses. And currently, GCC site, we're also assisting GCC for their vaccination site. To date, they have provided 58 doses. We also work with Glendale Memorial Hospital in providing vaccination, a one-time vaccination in the amount of 120 seniors. That was a one-time event. Our park services work orders increased. Pre-COVID, we were processing 100 to 200 work orders per month. And during COVID, that increased to 500 to 700. With the protocols changing daily, sometimes weekly, we would put up signs, we would take down signs, process new signs, put up caution tape. Pre-COVID, we were sanitizing our restrooms once a day. During COVID, we're sanitizing our restrooms 3 to 4 times a day, depending on the use and depending on the facilities. As I mentioned earlier, and on Tuesday, 8 of our sites were certified as AGZA, American Green Zone Alliance, due to us changing our gas-powered equipment into battery-operated equipment. We've also renovated a number of ball fields and restrooms. We renovated Glorieta Park Field, which included laser grading and a full irrigation system, revamp of the irrigation system. Upper Shoal Canyon Ball Field, we renovated. We also installed 2 bullpens with the request of Little League. We have 2 bullpens up there. Nibley Park restroom has been completed. Lower Shoal Park restroom and picnic shelter renovations have also been completed. So our special events, we've had a number of special events. Holiday tree lighting was a holiday tree lighting Cesar Chavez event. They were virtual events. We had a drive-by Halloween event. We had a drive-by cruise night event, and we had 2 events, movies event, drive-in events. Drive-in events were very popular this year due to the pandemic, and thanks to the support, we went ahead and had 2 events, one at the Sears parking lot and one at Lot 30 by the college. As for our KPIs, our virtual program attendance was a little under 27,000. Our virtual holiday event views were 591, and our modified in-person events, 3,200, and our facilities converted to green zones were 8. Our total operating budget with all funds is a little over 32 million. Salaries and benefits, 8,616,000. Our maintenance and operation, 12 million. And capital improvement for next year is 1.6 million. Our personnel count, we have full-time, 101 full-time employees. Our hourly full-time equivalent is 159 with a total of 260 full-time equivalent employees. Excuse me. Quick summary, here's the funding sources. Our general fund has increased to 8,438,000. That's an increase of 1 million. The increase is due to hourly wages, about 323,000 additional in hourly wages due to the minimum wage increase. Our salaries and benefits increase 223,000. Fleet, an increase in 108,000. We're purchasing a couple items that are needed. Our building maintenance has increased to 359,000 and utilities 34,000. Our CDBG fund, we have a slight decrease. This year we are an entitlement city, so we'll be receiving a little under 1.9 million. Our continuum of care fund, I would like to note that we did appropriate 2.7, a little over 2.7 back in March for next fiscal year to provide homeless services and outreach, to our unsheltered clients. Emergency Solutions Grant has a slight increase to 170,000, and Workforce Development 6,772,000, and Glendale Youth Alliance 2,885,000. We did have additional funding through Workforce Development that we appropriated this past year in the amount of 1.3 million, and that was due to different fundings, COVID-related programs that we had applied for and that we had received to support displaced employees in Glendale. Next slide, we do have miscellaneous grant funds in the amount of 452,000. This includes a homeless housing and prevention fund that we'll be receiving through the state. Hourly wages through LA County Prop 8, which assists us in maintenance at the Riverwalk and the sports complex, and Meals on Wheels program in the amount of 192,000. Measure H funds, Fund 224, I would like to highlight this is 100,000 that is given to us by LA County Workforce Development to run our RICE program. Our RICE program was developed and implemented 3 years ago to provide employment to homeless individuals, to maintain our parks and facilities, and get them into the workforce and assisting them in finding full-time positions within the city or somewhere in Glendale. Fund 270 is our nutritional meals grant program. This is also funds that are given to us by LA County Workforce Development and Aging to staff and feed our seniors in Glendale. Our capital improvement project, we're asking 900,000. This is going to be for the Rockhaven rehabilitation, park unanticipated repairs, citywide replacement, and Dunsmore Park parking lot repaving. And then Measure A funds, the 300,000 is also for a project that I'll talk about the next couple slides.
Mr. Bulanikian, can you clarify the Rockhaven capital repair is related to what aspect of it?
Rockhaven rehabilitation, the roof is, we're requesting 300,000. This will be used to replace the roofs. There are 3 to 4 roofs that need to be replaced, and also some windows that need to be replaced.
Not working?
Yeah, it's not working. Thank you. So our capital improvement program in the amount of $900,000 will include playground replacement, Dunsmore resurfacing, like I mentioned earlier, Rockhaven and Shoal Ball Field parking lot resurfacing, and $300,000 in Measure A funds will be to replace the Bay Permin restrooms and the snack shack. Next slide, please. The Continuum of Care Fund, like I mentioned earlier, we have appropriated this year $2.7 million. The services that are provided by the nonprofits, Essentia, Family Promise, Armenian Relief Society, YWCA, and Catholic Charities have served over 7,600 duplicated homeless persons to date. There are different funding sources through the state, federal government through the CARES Act, and staff have been RFPing and working with agencies to fund the programs through the end of 2022-2023. Workforce development. This past year during the pandemic, they have answered 15,600 calls. They have employed 346 low-income disadvantaged youth. We do see a slight increase in workforce development funding and Glendale Youth Alliance. This is due to additional grants that have been coming in and also some slight salary step increases for full-time employees. What's next? So we're working with our legal department and ISD to digitize day camp registration process. We will be expanding the battery operated equipment to a number of our facilities, actually all of our facilities within the next year, thanks to the Measure S funds that will be allocated. We are working on 2 playground projects, one at Glen Oaks Park and one at Emerald Isle Park. And after a number of years, we will have our Nature Education Center up and running. It'll be completed hopefully by the end of September. And the restrooms also, the new restrooms at the Duke Majan Park will also be ready. So we hope that we open up our Nature Education Center, work with our recreation staff, work with Glendale Unified and private schools in the area and Glendale area to develop a nature education program and to expand the program into the school district. And we will also be continuing the Life Wrap program that was funded through the Measure S program this past fiscal year. I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bolanikian, very much. Any questions, comments?
Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councilmember Kasakian.
I want to thank Mr. Bulanikian and the Parks Department for always working very hard in providing an essential service to our residents. Oftentimes, some of the earliest interactions any young resident has with the city in which they live is through the parks programs and the park system. And I think that you do a great job of making sure that they remain affordable, that they are accessible to all segments of our community. And I've seen with my own eyes the benefits of all these programs. I do want to ask a couple of things. Do we have a plan to provide shade structures across all our parks, playgrounds, even the ones that aren't necessarily slated to be replaced currently? And if not, it's something that I would like to request that we do, given the harmful impact of climate change, increased UV rays, and we see, if you go to communities in Nevada and Las Vegas, Phoenix, Arizona, where there's a lot more heat and a lot more days of sun, these playgrounds almost across the board always have these massive shade structures. I think it makes them more durable, makes them accessible, because no kid wants to play on scorching hot play equipment. So if it is something that we can implement, I would like us to do so. That's first. Go ahead.
Mayor Devine and members of the council, Councilmember Kasakian, yes, we are. As we renovate the playgrounds, we're also including shade structure. We have 3 projects that we're working on, one at Pacific, Glen Oaks, and Emerald Isle will be providing shade structures. We will work on providing shade structures at a number of our other park facilities.
And then I would love to see in our city, and again, this is a list of asks, and I know that we're looking at the budget and we're looking at it with a conservative eye this cycle, given some of the challenges that we are facing. But nevertheless, I think it's long overdue, and something that we ought to consider is having a dog park in the city of Glendale. A number of our neighboring cities do. There's a wonderful one in Silver Lake. There's one just outside of Glendale in the northern part of the city in the Crescenta Valley, La Crescenta area. But I think that for our residents here, especially perhaps in the more denser areas where people may be living in condominiums, apartments, and may not have access to a dog park or a place where their pets can play freely, I think that would be a great addition. I have a couple of ideas myself. I know that we've spoken about it in passing, and you've made a couple of good suggestions as well, but I'd like us to more seriously consider that. I can't imagine that the capital outlay for making something like that come online would be very great. I would also like us to revisit the issue of the playground equipment that has run its course, that we replace, the possibility of donating it to communities or some of our sister cities that are in need. Perhaps this may be a little bit of, provide a little bit of PTSD for some of my colleagues who were here prior to myself and Councilmember Brotman coming on board. But if there is an interest in doing so, I would like us to revisit this. So if one of my colleagues would second that. Also the dog park request and the shade structure. If these don't receive a second from my colleagues, I guess they go nowhere. But I would like us to look into repurposing, reusing equipment, especially in communities where there's a greater need for it than us. Because as we've spoken about it, as it's been spoken about in these chambers, even though we replace them, they still have an extended life beyond what our needs are.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Well, hopefully I do, and then you second.
Don't get me started. Sorry.
It may be a new day,
Hey,
Mayor.
I've been down that road, and I have been. Listen, I've been down that road, and I've been cut off at the knees. But yes, I totally agree with you.
Thank you.
Totally
I think
agree.
I'll take that as a second. Thank you, Mayor. And then lastly, in general, I mean, I think it's it's in line with a policy of sustainability. Rather than to have people use or produce new equipment, we give it to someone else who could use it themselves. And you know, recently my family attended a Everyone Plays event. I think it was at Pacific Park, where there were ping pong tables and other stuff that was out that aren't customarily or traditionally seen in our parks, and they really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great idea. I hope you continue to do more of those, but I also want to suggest doing that for some of the larger and older children in the community, perhaps people in their, say, 40s or whatever it may be, have some, set up a cornhole set or set up a, outdoor ping pong, whatever it may be. And I think in some of the areas where we're trying to energize and revitalize, maybe it's something you can collaborate with our economic development efforts. But I think it would be great. And Artsakh Avenue would be, or Artsakh Street would be a perfect place for something like that. And an oversized chess set, for instance, given the number of chess enthusiasts we have in the community. I've seen this in other cities, particularly as the weather gets warmer and people are spending more time outside. I think it meshes very well with our al fresco dining culture that we've been forced to embrace because of the coronavirus. So thank you. Those are just a few of my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? If not, I just want to say, did someone else want to comment? No. Oh, okay, Councilmember Brotman.
Yeah, I had a couple things. One, just hearing Councilmember Kasakian talk about shade structures, I agree with him on that. And to the extent we can make them living, make them trees, that would be great. And I wanted to ask Onig, just about the resources that you have in terms of groundskeepers, because I know we've been talking about artificial turf, and I don't want to get into that whole argument right now, but one of the big issues is the resources available to, maintain grass fields. I know that requires a lot of regular maintenance, and I'm just wondering what has been, the trend. I mean, over the last years, have we increased, decreased our staffing in that area, and our, or I guess our hourly in just that area of maintaining our our ball fields, or just our parks in general, just our kind of landscaper maintenance, or groundskeeper maintenance staff.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Brahman, since about 2011, 2012, not only Park Services, but, the entire city had a reduction in workforce. So we basically changed the way we are doing things. We would maintain the fields if we had additional staff. We are maintaining them the best we can with employees that, take vacation, and we have a few employees that are workers' comp. It's hard to fill those positions with hourly staff. Staff is doing their best trying to maintain the fields. It would always, it would be great to have additional employees and a full ball field crew maintaining the fields on a weekly basis, but we go ahead and make sure that the fields are playable, and if they're not playable, we go ahead and close them and renovate them so they can be playable. But to answer your question, it would be nice to have additional staffing, but we are doing our best we can with 41 full-time employees we have. Maintaining the parks, facilities, and ball fields.
Okay, well, that would be part of my wish list, would be that we, and, this with the same comments that Councilmember Kasakian just made about, understanding the limitations, but if we could try to, over time, find a way to bring that back up to a level that's sufficient to be able to do what we need to do to keep up our living fields, that would be great. And I'm a big second on the dog park. In fact, I had that written down as one of the things I wanted to say, and I was pleasantly surprised that Councilmember Kasakian beat me to it. So yes, definitely. I'm a new dog owner, and I've got a puppy here who's the reason why I keep moving around so much, because I got to keep my eye on her. But I've discovered just through that, that Glendale doesn't have a dog park. I didn't realize that. And there's a beautiful one up in La Crescenta, but that's, for me, not too far, but for most of, the residents of Glendale, that's too far. So I'm all for that too. That's all I have. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, members of
Yes.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Barman, I do want to point out, if we do have the additional staff, our fields still need to be, when we maintain and renovate the fields, they still need to be closed for a period of time, so the grass can grow and basically become healthier for play. So even if we have the staff, we'll get the job done quicker, but this won't mean that we will have our facilities available year-round. Let it be our multi-purpose fields, our baseball fields, soccer fields, lacrosse, and so on. So depending on the staffing, we will still need to close the fields for a period of time for the turf to settle in. I just wanted to point that out.
So
Okay.
I just was curious about how our staffing levels compared to the past.
Okay.
So thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
Mayor, I just want to add
No one
one.
else has
I just want to add one more thing. I just wanted to thank park staff because just going to the park since we have eased some of the restrictions for being able to use them, it's incredible to see how many groups, families are taking advantage of this. I think with people not having been able to travel and go very far, people are staying home and trying to find ways to spend their time in recreation, from martial arts classes that are for all ages, to various sports groups and even the personal trainers. I know we initiated a program to allow for a lot of these gyms that were still paying but could not hold their classes indoors. It has truly been impressive to see, and hopefully people will continue after this pandemic is over to use the parks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Devine, one more quick thing.
Yes, Councilmember Brotman?
Is that okay? I just want to add
Sure,
that.
absolutely, go ahead. I'm waiting patiently.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that Parks is kind of the unsung hero sometimes, and COVID has really, I know, been really tough on you, and you've come through. So I wanted to thank you, and also just mention that I think your public what do I call it? Kind of public service mentality is really noticed, and I could mention again the family. Remember that wanted a bench and a tree for their daughter. That got put in the other day, and I went to the opening of that, and the family actually wanted me to thank everyone on council for that, but just were singing the praises of Onig and Coco, and just how responsive the two of you were, and I think that runs across the whole Parks Department. So wanted to make sure that I got that out there.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Madam
Anyone
Mayor.
else?
I missed that invite. I would have been happy to go to.
Likewise. Yeah, I would have liked that too.
Yeah, it was a last minute thing. I think they, I don't know exactly how it happened, but I found out about it the night before.
Necessary. No explanation necessary. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, first of all, I personally want to say that I don't think that any department, Onig, has helped our community more than yours, from the homeless to children, adults, seniors, renters, homeless. I mean, it just even pets. I mean, I wish that the community as a whole could hear about all of the programs and services that your department provides for our city. It's really amazing. The dog park, we've asked for that previously, and we even tried once to buy a property in the Adams area, but it was too expensive. But I just heard at SCAG, an award was given to LA, and it's a pilot program, and it's called Adopt a Lot. And I don't know how many city properties, and Mr. Galani, and I don't know if you can provide this information, how many city properties we have that are, underused or underdeveloped, that can be adopted by neighbors and residents, kind of like we did the gardens. But I understand there's a company called KDI that provides parts and programs and directions on how these small areas can be adapted into parks. And then if they're well used and they're well accepted, then the city can make them permanent. So I think that's something that we can look into. It's called, again, Adopt a Lot. Adopt a Lot. And it's the KDI company that does the work. That was about all I had to say. And the oversized chess park, we've also discussed that for ArtSoc with the planning for the new renovation and redesign of ArtSoc, and that was one of the suggestions that was given. So it's good that we're all on the same page on these ideas and these suggestions, and I think it's great to look forward to some of these things coming to fruition. So if there are no other comments, is there any other report that's going to be coming to us?
Madam
Mr.
Mayor.
Galanian?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members, City Council, not today. Our next budget study session will be on Tuesday, May 11th at 9 a.m. There will be 3 more departments making presentations. And in conclusion, just wanted to express my gratitude to Mr. Ajemian, Mr. Garcia, Mr. Doyle, and Mr. Bulanikian. That he's already gotten a lot of accolades and expressed gratitude, and their staff who collected all this data and put these presentations together, and obviously our finance director Michelle Flynn and the budget team.
And thank you, Mr. Galanian. I wanted to conclude by saying one thing has become very clear to me today. When we see all the visuals of everything that these departments do, it's astounding, and how much work and time and staff it takes to execute the programs and services that our residents are getting. And again, I say I wish everyone in our city could see this this presentation. Kudos to everyone and how you've adapted to the pandemic. It's been incredible. And I agree with Mr. Galanian. I really appreciated the graphics presented today, the matrix, et cetera. And thanks to my colleagues, to your insightful questions and suggestions. And Michelle, thank you to your staff for all the work that you've put in on this. So with that, what's next?
Adjournment.
Adjournment? Do I have a motion?
So moved. Is there a
A
second?
second? Thank you. We are adjourned at 3:33. Thank you all.